Welcome back to these series of lectures. This is History 1121, the first half of Western civilization. Today we're going to start with a couple of lectures that will lead us directly into Christopher Columbus. We'll start with the Mongol Empire, and then we'll talk about Marco Polo in the next lecture. What I want you to do is to link these three things together: the Mongols, Marco Polo, and Christopher Columbus. This may seem odd at first to bring in people from Central Asia and indeed the Far East to make the connection with Columbus, but I think you'll see how this works. What it will do is complicate a history that you may think you know. It's more complex than you've been told in school. The Mongol Empire, let me start by characterizing it, and then we'll talk about why it's significant. The Mongols are, of course, a nomadic people, a horse-bound people. They live on the steppe lands of Central Asia, and we'll give you the spelling for these things. The Mongols thrive off of their livestock, their horses, their sheep, and their goats. The steppe land, of course, is a narrow belt of pasture, and it extends from Manchuria on the Pacific all the way to Hungary in southeastern Europe. This narrow belt of pasture, of course, is the main highway of the Mongols, who are in motion seasonally in search of more pasture for their livestock and fresh water and shelter. Like I said, the Mongols are nomadic. They don't build cities and villages so much. Small groupings of people who can pack up their tents, their felt and leather tents, and move on. You should contrast the Mongols and their highly mobile society, their nomadic society. We should contrast them to the great civilizations of South Asia, China, and then moving west from China, of course, you have India, and then moving further west, you have Persia, and then further west, Mesopotamia, and all the way to the Mediterranean, and finally Europe. Now, these civilizations in Asia are old and sophisticated and highly populated. What's going to happen here in the 13th, 14th centuries is that the Mongol armies are going to overrun these old, sedentary, established, complex civilizations. So draw the contrast between nomadic Mongols on the one hand and sedentary Chinese, Indians, and Persians on the other. There are two Mongols that I want you to know by name, and you may have heard of them. Genghis Khan, who is the founder of the Mongol Empire, and his grandson, Kublai Khan, who is the Mongol ruler over China, and we'll get to that in just a moment. The steppe lands, and you can see on the map that we provided you, the steppe lands run east and west across Central Asia. From these steppe lands, extending south into China, India, Persia, are a series of elaborate horse trails constructed by the Mongols. It's called the Yam, a transliteration of a Mongol word, simply Y-A-M, Yam. Think of it as sort of a primitive interstate highway system. The Mongols built stations along the Yam. Every 25, 35 miles, a station with fresh water and hay and tack, extra horses, place to rest. This makes it quick and safe for Mongol horsemen to move about this vast continent. The Yam, of course, allows the Mongols access to the great sedentary civilizations of South Asia. Again, China, Persia, India. Genghis Khan is significant because as one of these nomadic Mongol horsemen, he organized these various tribes into a great nation, and indeed one that went on to conquer much of Eurasia. Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, in the 14th century, of course, will conquer China And the Mongol dynasty over China is called the Yuan dynasty, Y-U-A-N. You know, even if you know nothing else about Chinese history, you know that politically Chinese history is divided up into dynasties. The Ming dynasty, the Sung dynasty. Well, the Mongol rule over China is called the Yuan dynasty. Now, I said that the Mongols overran a good portion of Eurasia. How did they do this? A very formidable military force. The Mongols combined three basic elements to create a cavalry force of great power and mobility. First, the horse. Mongols grow up on horseback. In fact, we have reports of Mongols seeing the great cities in China for the first time and being bewildered by the vast number of pedestrians. And we can also see that the Mongols treated pedestrians like livestock, creatures to be herded. So the Mongols are expert horsemen. Take this and add to it the bow. The compound bow that the Mongols used could throw an arrow with great velocity and accuracy. Add to this the stirrup. The stirrup, of course, allows the Mongols to have their hands free so that they can continually fire arrow after arrow at an enemy. So their dexterity on horseback combined with the stirrup and the compound bow allows the Mongols to surprise the enemy, ambush, quickly surround the enemy, fool the enemy. And these tactics, these factors led to great military conquest. I should add that the Mongol armies would readily incorporate technology from other civilizations, catapults and different things. So they're quick to borrow and put to good use technology created by others. They practice stealth or deceit. I believe it was Genghis Khan who encouraged his men to create multiple campfires when they camped for the evening, so that if an enemy spy was looking in on them, it would appear that they have a much larger army than in fact they do. I believe it was Genghis Khan who also created straw men for horses to make it look at a distance as if the Mongols had many more soldiers than they actually did. So deceit is one of the central tactics here. The Mongols were famed for their fake retreats, essentially. They confront the enemy and then suddenly turn and appear to vanish, a retreat, perhaps in fear. This, of course, is nonsense. They retreated tactically and then would often divide up and then encircle the advancing enemy, an enemy that believed that the Mongols had fled. The Mongols would rapidly surround and annihilate this enemy. So the feigned retreat, combined with these other factors that I've just mentioned, made the Mongol horsemen one of the most formidable military forces up to the pre-modern era, up to the use of gunpowder. Now, a couple of words about Kublai Khan. Kublai Khan, of course, the ruler of the Yuan dynasty in China. He employed, for about 17 years, I believe, a Venetian merchant whose name is Marco Polo. We're going to get into Polo in the next lecture. What I want to do here is point out some of the significances of the Mongols. The first significance is this. Mongol control over much of Eurasia, over the steppe and over the Yam that extended south from the steppe, allowed them to control trade. And indeed, the Mongols encouraged this trade as it enhanced their power. So there's a vast circuit of trade will emerge here, a circuit of trade that will overlap with other circuits of trade in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in South Asia. This facilitates not only trade and commerce, but it facilitates travel. We've seen earlier when we talked about Alexander the Great significance perhaps is he bringing East and West together. And the Mongols do this too. They bring Western civilization and Eastern civilizations together so that people can commingle and exchange ideas and philosophies and trade items and clothing and food and on and on. So this vast circuit of trade, this unification of Eurasia under Mongol rule allows for safe travel, safe passage. So missionaries, merchants, other travelers can move about on the Mongol yam safely and quickly. Of course, the yam was patrolled by Mongol horsemen, and if you committed a crime on the Mongol yam, then your punishment would be swift and severe. Other significances, the Mongols, as they extend their rule from China to Europe and create safe passage for travelers, are also going to inadvertently carry with them a very dangerous flea that has in its belly the bacteria that causes the bubonic plague. And we'll talk about this in a later lecture. The Mongols will, like I say, inadvertently carry this flea from China to India, to Persia, to the Middle East, to Europe, causing a demographic disaster beyond belief, one of the great disasters of human history. So these are the basic significances of the Mongol Empire. And in our next lecture, we'll begin to connect the Mongols to Marco Polo and then Marco Polo to Christopher Columbus. Thank you.